Hello and welcome to today's edition of Daf Menachot, Tractate Menachot, Menachot Menachot, Daf 63, Amud B. Let's dive straight in. And it states with regard to meal offering based in of an offering and again offering for a total of 2 times. Once in connection to a meal offering of loaves, and once in connection to a meal offering of wafers. But if that were the case, it would indicate that these are 2 types of offerings. It doesn't actually say offering only 1 time. And when you bring the meal offering baked in an oven, it shall be unleavened loaves of fine flour mixed with oil, or the unleavened wafers spread with oil, Leviticus 2:4. And it is stated with regard to this meal offering, both loaves and wafers, which indicates that the 2 varieties of the same offering. Now, Rishon continues, from now it may be inferred, if one wants to bring 10 loaves, he may bring 10 loaves. And if he prefers to bring 10 wafers, he may bring 10 wafers. But if he decides that half of them should be loaves and half of them should be wafers, he may bring it in this manner. And if he brings part as loaves and part as wafers, how does he proceed? He mingles all of them. We roll on. Rashi explains that he breaks the loaves and wafers into pieces until they are like flour, as stated on 75b, and mixes them with oil. And removes a handful from both of them. And if he removed a handful and it happened that only part of one time, either loaves or wafers, came up in his hand for both of them, he fulfills the obligation as they are both part of a single offering. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, who's that? A Tana from Rosh Hashanah Tanaim, and the son of the Tana Rabbi Yehuda ben Alai. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda was a colleague of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, with whom he is recorded to have collaborated on several projects. Rulings of his are cited on several occasions in the Mishnah, and many times in the Sefta and other sources. It is likely that Rabbi Yehuda died before Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and it is related that he instructed Rabbi Yehuda Nasi considering certain matters before his passing. It says, from where is it derived? With regard to one who says, it is incumbent upon me to bring a baked meal offering, that he may not bring half of the offering as loaves and half as wafers. He answers, the verse states, and every meal offering that is baked in an oven, and every one that is made in a deep pan, and on the shallow pan, shall belong to the priest who sacrifices it, and every meal offering mixed with oil or dry shall belong to all the sons of Aaron, as one as another. One as well as another. Leviticus 7:9-10. The verse juxtaposed the meal offering baked in an oven to the meal offering prepared on the pan, and the meal offering prepared in the deep pan, and similar to the meal offering brought as a gift, alluded to by the phrase mixed with oil, and to the meal offering of a sinner, which is called dry. This is just the term and every in Leviticus 7:10 stated below with regard to those meal offerings is referring to 2 different types of meal offerings. So too the term and every in Leviticus 7:9 stated above with regard to the 2 forms of meal offering baked in an oven is referring to 2 different types of meal offering, and therefore one may not bring part as loaves and part as wafers. The Gemara asks, and how does Rabbi Yehuda, who maintains that loaves and wafers are 2 different types of meal offerings baked in an oven, respond to Rabbi Shimon's proof? After all, Rabbi Shimon is saying well when he points out that the verse mentions offering only once. The Gemara explains, Rabbi Yehuda could have said to you, since it is written with oil, and with oil in the verse, it shall be unleavened loaves of fine flour mixed with oil, unleavened wafers spread with oil. Leviticus 2:4, it is considered as though it is written offering and offering, and therefore these are deemed 2 different types of meal offering. The Gemara asks, and how does Rabbi Shimon respond to this claim? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Shimon maintains that the repetition of the term with oil teaches a different halacha. If it were not written with oil, and again with oil, I would say that a meal offering baked in an oven must be specifically brought half as loaves and half as wafers. And if you wanted to bring only loaves alone or wafers alone, I would say that you may not bring a meal offering in this manner. The repetition of the term with oil teaches us that a meal offering baked in an oven can comprise 10 loaves or 10 wafers, or a combination of both types. The Gemara further inquires, The Gemara states that Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, holds that both of the wives are two different types of meal offerings. The opinion of Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, is the same as that of his father, Rabbi Yehuda, whose opinion is also mentioned in the Bible. Why is it necessary to cite Rabbi Yossi by Rabbi Yehuda's opinion separately? The Gemara explains, it is necessary to cite the opinion of Rabbi Yossi by Rabbi Yehuda because there is a practical difference between his ruling and that of his father, as if someone transgressed and performed. So what's the footnote? Beinahu de'i avad. The commentaries explain that according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who derives from the single-term meal offering, that one must bring one offering, either of loaves or of wafers, but not two types of meal offerings. This is a mitzvah only ab initio. But if you mingle the two types together, the offering is valid after the fact. Conversely, Rabbi Yehuda derives from the repetition of the term in every, that the meal offering baked in an oven is juxtaposed to the other meal offerings. He therefore concludes that just as with regard to other meal offerings, if two different types are mixed together, the offering is not valid. So too, in the case of a meal offering baked in an oven, if one mixed together the loaves and wafers, the meal offering is not valid, says Rashi. The sacrifice of a meal offering baked in an oven by bringing a mixture of loaves and wafers, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the offering is valid after the fact, as Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda deems it not valid even after the fact. Summary to Perek 5. All meal offerings, with the exception of 10 leavened loaves of the 40 loaves of a thanks offering, until brought in the festival of Shavuot, must be unleavened. If they were leavened, they are not valid. With regard to the definition of leavened bread, it was established that the state of leavening dough, whose surface has become pale at the beginning of the leavening process, is subject to a dispute between the Tanaim as to whether it is considered leavened bread or it is still deemed unleavened. If the leavening dough is at a later stage, when it has cracks that look like the antenna of locusts, there is a dispute as to whether it is full-fledged leavened bread or if it is an intermediate status between matzot and leavened bread. With regard to poaching, i.e. dough kneaded after boiling water has been added to it, it was determined that this manner of preparation is valid only for the griddle cake meal offering of an anointed priest, whereas the other meal offerings are not valid if prepared in this manner even after the fact. Concerning the issue of leavening by fruit juice, the type of leavening can turn dough into hardened leaven, which is not full-fledged leaven. There is a dispute among the sages as to whether one may use such juice to leaven the meal offering that comes as leavened bread. With regard to the proper method of kneading meal offerings that come as matzah, it was established that they should be kneaded with lukewarm water, as this causes the dough to bake well and prevents it from leavening. One who leavens a disqualified meal offering is exempt, but one who adds leaven to dough that already became leaven is liable. The sages disagree as to the halacha of one who adds leaven to the dough that has already become leaven and who is afterward disqualified. Another dispute between the sages focuses on the manner of leavening meal offerings that come as leavened bread. From where is the leavening agent brought? Some say that one removes the leavening agent from the dough of the meal offering itself. After it has become leavened to a great extent, it is returned to the meal offering, which is then leavened. The halacha is that one brings aged leavening dough that leavened many days from elsewhere, as it will leaven the dough better. Most meal offerings require both oil and frankincense. The meal offering brought with libations requires oil but not frankincense, whereas the shewbread requires frankincense but not oil. Furthermore, the meal offering of a sinner and the meal offering brought by a sota neither require oil nor frankincense, and one who places oil and frankincense on them is liable separately for each of these additions. Similarly, most meal offerings must be brought near to the wall of the altar. There are some that require waving by extending and bringing back, raising and lowering them, but do not require bringing near. These are the guilt offerings of a leper, and his log of oil, the first fruits, the sacrificial portions of peace offerings brought by individuals, and the breast and thigh of those peace offerings, and the 2 loaves and 2 lambs brought on Shavuot. These loaves and lambs are waved together. The Oma meal offering and the meal offering brought by a sota require both waving and bringing near, whereas the meal offering brought with libations requires neither waving nor bringing near. The meal offering can be prepared in several ways. On a mahavat, a shallow pan, or maheshet, a deep vessel with much oil, or in an oven. Additionally, a meal offering baked in an oven can be bought in the form of loaves or of wafers spread with oil. In any case, one should not deviate from that which he vowed. And we'll go into the introduction to Perek 6. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When you come to the land that I give you, and reap its harvest, Then you shall bring the sheaf of the first of your harvest to the priest, and he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after Shabbat, the priest shall wave it, and in the day when you wave the sheaf, you shall offer a lamb without blemish in its first year for a burnt offering to the Lord, and its meal offering shall be 2/10 part of an ephah of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire to the Lord for a pleasing aroma. And its libation shall be of wine, a fourth part of a hin. And you shall eat neither bread, nor parched grain, nor fresh ears, until the self-same day, until you have brought the offering of your God. It is a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. And you shall count for you from the morrow after the day of rest, from the day that you brought the sheaf of waving. 7 weeks shall there be complete. Even to the morrow after the 7th week you shall number 50 days, and you shall present a new meal offering to the Lord. That's from Leviticus 23:9-16. And you shall bring a meal offering of first fruits to the Lord. You shall bring for the meal offering of your first fruits grain in the ear parched with fire, even groats of the fresh ear. And you shall put oil upon it and lay frankincense thereon. It is a meal offering. Leviticus 2:14-15. 7 weeks shall number for you. From the time the sickle is first put to the standing grain, you shall begin to number 7 weeks. Deuteronomy 16:9. This entire chapter addresses the details of the mitzvah of the Omer meal offering and the prohibition against partaking of the new crop prior to the sacrifice of the Omer. The rite of the Omer meal offering differs from the standard procedure prescribed for other meal offerings in several ways. Although the actual act of sacrifice of the Omer offering is similar to that of other meal offerings, the material used and the processes of its preparations are unique. Unlike most meal offerings, the Omer consists of barley grains. They are prepared through roasting and other special procedures as mandated by the Torah. The chapter includes several discussions on the manner in which the Omer is reaped and sacrificed. Certain basic details, such as the exact measure of barley harvested for the Omer, are not specified in the Torah. Likewise, when the 16th of Nisan occurs on Shabbat, there is a dispute as to whether the reaping process overrides Shabbat. Furthermore, even according to those who maintain that the barley is reaped on Shabbat, it is unclear whether or not the reaping process follows precisely the same procedure as on a weekday. The Torah refers to the Omer as first fruits offering, the meaning of this, as well as the rest of the verse, which describes it with such obscure terms as in the ear parched with fire and groats of the fresh ear, is elucidated and explained in this chapter. Many of the enactments instituted by the sages with regard to the preparation of the Omer offering were specifically designed to shield against the influence of the Boothian sect and the heretical beliefs. Citing a literal interpretation of the verse from the morrow after the day of rest, this sect maintained that the Omer should be brought specifically on the day after Shabbat, not on the day after the first festive day of Passover. The Gemara discusses the background of this historic dispute, detailing the biblical proofs offered by the sages in defense of their opinion. Another highly detailed halachic topic involving the Omer offering is the mitzvah of counting the Omer, which begins on the night of its sacrifice. Since one verse instructs to count 50 days and another 7 weeks or 7 complete weeks, necessary to clarify exactly how the Omer should be counted. And an additional halacha connected with the Omer is the prohibition against partaking of the new crop prior to its sacrifice. Furthermore, it's prohibited to reap from the new crop prior to the reaping of the Omer. The Gemara spells out which grains are included in this prohibition and which circumstances or places are excluded. This includes a discussion of the application of this prohibition outside of Eretz Yisrael, as well as the clarification of its status after the destruction of the temple. Mishnah Rabbi Shmuel says, when the day of the sacrifice of the Omer meal offering would occur on Shabbat, I'm just giving a background here. Say the Barak in the order of the chapters. There is a discrepancy between the standard printing of the Mishnah and the Gemara with regard to the placement of this chapter. In the Mishnah, it appears as the 10th chapter, not the 6th chapter. Later commentaries note that there is a compelling case for the order as it is in the Mishnah, as the chapter addresses the sacrifice of the Omer meal offering and the two offered on Shavuot, and therefore makes sense for it to be placed after the discussion of the standard meal offerings, which are continued for another few chapters. That's from Yad David. Nevertheless, even in the early commentaries apparently had the order found in the Gemara. This is apparent, for example, when Tosfot in this chapter in 67b refer to a passage in the 7th chapter where they state that the cited text appears later in the Tractate Menachot. See, the Makom proved that it was the order that Rashi had as well. Omer Hayabah. when the Omer would occur on Shabbat. The Omer is one of the public offerings that is brought at a fixed time, and therefore a sacrifice overrides the prohibition of Shabbat and ritual impurity. The labours performed that one would otherwise be prohibited were kept to a minimum, and the 1/10 of an ephah of flour that was brought as an offering was processed from 3 seahs of wheat barley. If it occurred during the week, the flour was processed from 5 seahs of wheat barley. And the rabbis say, both on Shabbat and during the week, the Omer offering would come from 3 seahs of wheat barley. Kitziras HaOmer, the Omer offering. To prepare the Omer meal offering, 3 men would reap 3 seahs of barley with 3 sickles and place them in 3 baskets, in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. Ram Sefer Avoda, Hilchot Tamidim Mesofim 7:11. Rabbi Chanina, the deputy high priest, Rabbi Chanina or Hananiah, the deputy high priest, was one of the sages who lived through the destruction of the Second Temple. He was active while the temple still stood and continued teaching after it was destroyed. According to one tradition, he was one of the 10 martyrs killed by the Roman government as part of his infamous decrees again after the destruction of the temple. As indicated by his title, Rabbi Chanina held the prominent position of deputy high priest. This meant he was active in leading the daily temple service and was next in line to replace the high priest in the event that he was unable to serve due to illness or ritual impurity. Chanina apparently came from a very distinguished family and maintained close relations with the house of the Nasi. Most of Rabbi Chanina's statements concern issues that relate to the temple service, e.g. offerings or halachot of purity and impurity. One of Rabbi Hanina's sons, known as Rabbi Shimon, son of the deputy, was also a Tana, says, on Shabbat the barley was reaped by an individual and with 1 sickle. There's a picture here of Magal, a sickle, an iron sickle from ancient Greece, and with 1 basket, a kupa. Baskets were used for reaping and harvesting stalks that were too short to be bound together in a bundle. Since the meal offering was reaped from the young, short stalks of barley, it was necessary to use baskets to fetch Israel, and there's a mosaic from late antiquity depicting a basket used in a grape harvest, in which the barley was placed, and during the week it was reaped by 3 people with baskets and 3 sickles. Also, footnote: the sage enacted this procedure for several reasons. One is to involve several people as to display a public rejection of the opinion of the Bethusians, a heterodox sect during the Second Temple period who did not accept the Old Torah and who interpreted the verse from the Mor after Shabbat in Leviticus 23:16, literally meaning the offering should not be brought on the 16th of Nisan, but on the Sunday following that date. Another reason is that the principle derived from the verse, and the multitude of people is the king's glory in Proverbs 14:28, which indicates that the larger the assembly involved in a mitzvah, the greater the honor to God from the Sikha Rid. The third reason to ensure that the mitzvah be performed with diligence and alacrity, as opposed to expedited when performed by 3 people in the Rambam's commentary on the Mishnah. And the rabbis say both on Shabbat and during the week, it was reaped by 3 people, 3 baskets, and with 3 sickles. The Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel and the rabbis disagree in the Mishnah as to how many seah of barley were reaped for an Omer meal offering on Shabbat. According to Rabbi Yishmael, 3 seah were reaped when the offering was brought on Shabbat, and 5 seah were reaped when the offering was brought on a weekday. The rabbis maintain that both during the week and on Shabbat 3 seah were reaped. The Gemara asks, granted the opinion of the rabbis is clear, as they maintain that a select tenth and Ison Muvcha, in the process of milling barley, all parts of the grain, the endosperm, germ, and bran, which is the outer layer, are gotten together. Through the sifting process, the bran is separated from the flour, which is itself separated in different grades. The highest grade is a high-quality flour, which contains large particles of the endosperm. Next is the regular flour, which consists of finer particles of the endosperm. Finally is the inferior coarse flour, so called because of the high levels of germ mixed in it. And the ephah flour comes from 3 seah. The reason behind the opinion of the rabbis is the matter of dispute among the commentaries. Some explain that according to the rabbis, one can possess 1/10 of an ephah of flour from 3 seah. Therefore, this is the maximum amount that may be reaped on Shabbat. The Bas citing Rashi. Others explain that the rabbis hold that there should be no difference between Shabbat and a weekday when it comes to the processing and bringing of the Omer. Whatever amount is needed on the weekday in order to produce a select 10, whether it is 3 or 5 seah, may be reaped and processed on Shabbat as well. Sheeting Mechubes is Karen Ora, the reaped barley, and therefore there is no difference whether the barley is reaped during the week or whether it is reaped on Shabbat, as a select tenth is required. Rather, there is a question with regard to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel, who differentiates between Shabbat and during the week. What does he hold? If he holds that a select tenth of an ephah of flour can come only from 5 seah of wheat barley, then even on Shabbat 5 seah should also be required. And if the select tenth of an ephah of flour can come from even 3 seah, then even on a weekday 3 should suffice. Rabbi Shmuel holds that a select tenth of an ephah of flour can come without exertion from 5 seah, and without exertion from 3. Therefore, on a weekday we reap and bring flour from 5 seah, and this produces a better final product. Some only come to explain that flour produced from 5 seah is superior because only the best of each seah is used in the final product, and that's from Rashi. Rabbi Vadad Bartanor later commentaries question this claim, since it produces a better product, reaping that amount should be permitted even on Shabbat. Therefore, they explain that the benefit lies not in the physical quality of the flour, but in the symbolic quality of the process. Using a great amount of raw material is considered a display of wealth and grandeur of the temple and its service to the Shash. Since only the highest quality flour of each seah is selected on Shabbat, it is preferable that one should increase the effort involved in one prohibited labor. Some of the later authorities explain that everyone agrees that when Shabbat prohibitions are waived in the unique circumstances, such as the temple offering a life-threatening situation, this dispensation applies equally to an increase in the number of the various labors as to an increase in the number of repetitions of a single prohibited labor. Nevertheless, if the same result can be achieved, it is better to repeat one prohibited labor rather than perform various forms of other prohibited labors due to the severity of the violation of each and every prohibited labor on the Sabbath. Rabbi Shmuel and the rabbis may disagree with regard to the necessity for various forms of labor in the specific case. That's from the Igros Moshe. Other later authorities contend that there is a basic difference of principle between the rabbis and Rabbi Shmuel, claiming that the rabbis do not accept that it is better to repeat one prohibited labor rather than perform several labors in the Shagat Ayeh, such as reaping and winnowing, which are required for the process of 5 seah. Rabbi said, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shmuel, son of Rabbi Yonatan ben Baruch, said the same thing. As is taught in the Brisa, if on the 14th Nisan occurs in Shabbat, when the Paschal lamb is sacrificed, but not roasted until Shabbat ends, one flays a Paschal offering up to the breast to enable removal of the parts of the animal as sacrificed upon the altar on Shabbat, and flays the rest of the animal after Shabbat. Further, skinning is only to facilitate eating the animal, and therefore it does not override Shabbat. This is the same as Rabbi Shmuel, son of Rabbi Yonatan ben Baruch, and the rabbis say one has not performed the obligation properly unless he flays it in its entirety. The Gemara explains why the statements of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shmuel, son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baruch, are the same. Didn't Rabbi Shmuel, son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baruch, say that anywhere that it is possible to perform the necessary task without an additional action, we do not exert ourselves on Shabbat? Here too, since it is possible to perform the necessary task without the act of flailing, we do not exert ourselves. The Gemara rejects this comparison. From where is this conclusion reached? Perhaps Rabbi Shmuel states it will only here in the case of reaping 3 seah on Shabbat, where there is no degradation of consecrated items, but there, where there is a degradation of consecrated items, as the animal will be left half laid overside. I didn't read all the footnotes. I'm going to run out of time. Wish you all the best and take care. Bye.